Welcome to this explainer. Millions of us use ASMR every single night to just kind of turn our brains off. Yet, very few of us actually know what's happening on a neurological level. So today, we're unpacking tapping and scratching. They're almost always grouped together, but as we're going to see from the data, our brains process them in completely different ways. One provides structure, and the other provides pure sensation. Let's dig into exactly what your nervous system might be craving right now.
Let's kick things off by busting a pretty common myth. A lot of the time, tapping on a wooden block and scratching on some rough fabric get lumped together under this giant umbrella of object sounds. But does your brain actually treat a tap identically to a scratch? Well, the short answer is no, absolutely not. They don't function identically in your brain at all.
So, to get why this happens, we have to rewind to the foundational science. Back in 2015, there was this landmark study in Poerio by Barratt and Davis that really put ASMR on the scientific map. They noted that crisp sounds and repetitive movements were major triggers, which firmly established object sounds as this huge category of ASMR. But as auditory attention research has evolved over the years, we've realized something super important. Not all crisp sounds do the same work. They function completely differently depending on the listener's state of mind, their sensory profile, and exactly how the sound itself is structured.
So, here's our game plan for today. We'll start with the ASMR trigger trap. Then, we'll break down the science of rhythm versus texture. After that, we'll map these triggers to your daily goals, like focus and sleep, and we'll finish up with a practical listener test.
All right, part 1, the ASMR trigger trap, and why your brain processes these sounds completely differently.
Here's the trap we fall into. Grouping these sounds together ignores some really crucial science regarding attention and relaxation. Because they function in totally different ways, we end up missing out on the specific mechanics that make them work. Think about tapping. It's built on discrete pulses. It's predictable, and it literally gives the brain a beat to follow. Scratching, on the other hand, is built on texture. It's continuous, it's grainy, and it creates a tactile mental image. One is an auditory anchor, and the other is a sensory simulation. Grasping this difference is an absolute game changer for unlocking better relaxation.
Moving into part 2. The science of rhythm, and how tapping gives your brain a predictable beat.
Think about what happens when you hear tapping. Your attention essentially locks onto a pattern. Tap, pause. Tap, pause. Even if the rhythm shifts slightly, your brain fundamentally comes to expect that pulse. Now imagine a racing mind at 2 a.m. For that brain, this predictability acts as a structured, safe anchor. It stops your mind from spiraling over what you said in a meeting 3 years ago, right? Your auditory attention simply tracks the sound, and that pattern becomes this really quiet place for your mind to rest.
But hey, speed changes the whole shebang. When we listen to slow tapping, it is simple, it is repetitive, it is absolutely effortless to follow. Your brain doesn't have to work hard at all to interpret it, which is exactly why it is so brilliant for falling asleep. Fast tapping, though, completely different animal. It's exciting, it adds novelty and surprise, and it can trigger some serious tingles. But there is a major caveat you need to know about. Fast tapping can also feel highly urgent. If your nervous system is already activated, say you're feeling a bit anxious, fast tapping might actually push you into feeling overstimulated.
Okay, part 3. The science of texture, and the incredible concept of the imagined touch.
With scratching, we are shifting totally away from the beat and onto the surface itself. When you hear scratching, the sound is literally telling you about the texture of an object. Is it rough? Is it dry? Papery? Even though absolutely nothing is touching your skin, the sound of a soft scratch across fabric vividly suggests movement across your own scalp or skin. It's a genuinely amazing psychological phenomenon. It essentially tricks your brain into creating this rich, tactile image.
It really boils down to this powerful sensory metaphor. If tapping says, follow this rhythm, scratching says, imagine this texture. And this explains so much about the ASMR experience. Because scratching relies so heavily on tactile imagination, literally tricking the brain into simulating a physical touch, it might be exactly why scratching produces such stronger physical tingling sensations for a lot of listeners compared to just tapping.
Which brings us to part 4, focus, tingles, and sleep. Let's talk about how to map these triggers to your actual daily goals. You really shouldn't just click on a random object sounds video and hope for the best. You gotta match the sound to the goal. If your goal is focus, like you're studying or working, brighter tapping acts like a metronome. It gives your attention a nice boundary without demanding a lot of emotional processing. Now, if you want tingles, gentle scratching provides that rich sensory detail that invites a physical response. Just steer clear of harsh scratching, which can just feel really abrasive. And for sleep, you want slow tapping on soft materials or really gentle scratching. Absolutely avoid anything sharp or aggressive right before bed.
And we knew these tools work on a physical level. A 2018 study in PLOS1 by Poerio and colleagues showed that watching ASMR content produced a measurable drop in heart rate and increased calm in sensitive participants. That physiological reduction is very real. But as this research implies, the trigger itself isn't the whole story. The sound has to interact correctly with the person listening.
Which brings us to a really vital realization. Your specific sensory profile matters tremendously. A 2021 study by Roberts, Beath, and Boag in the Journal of Personality found that ASMR strength is directly associated with individual sensory sensitivity. This means there is literally no single winner between tapping and scratching. Some of us desperately need the crisp repetition of a tap to wind down. Others get totally bored by repetition and need the soft, changing variety of a textured scratch. It all just comes down to your own unique neurological wiring.
Finally, Part 5. The listener test. Let's figure out what your nervous system needs tonight.
I want you to become your own scientist here. Next time you have your headphones on, try this simple, fun 2-minute test. First, listen to slow tapping for 2 minutes and just notice your breath. Does your mind easily latch onto the rhythm? Okay. Then switch to gentle scratching for 2 minutes. Do you start imagining the texture? Do you feel tingles on your scalp? Compare the after effects. When the sound completely stops, which one actually left your body feeling calmer?
Because remember, tapping is the science of rhythm, and scratching is the science of texture. The absolute best ASMR experience happens when the sound you choose perfectly matches the exact state your body is already asking for. So tonight, ask yourself, does my racing mind need a rhythm to anchor it, or does my body need a texture to soothe it? Thanks for joining me in this explainer. It really makes you wonder, though, what other everyday sounds is your brain secretly using to regulate itself?